All right. It looks like we have everybody. Welcome, welcome. So this is the Hideout, and this is episode 11 of it. We've been doing these every week, having some awesome guests on, and I don't know if we've had a lineup as cool as the one we do today. So I am stoked. We're going to be talking about gamifying the metaverse, which is a very broad topic, but I think a very important one as we continue to develop this elusive metaverse. I think what we'll do is we'll start with introductions, and then we will get into the meat of the questions. So our panel today will be myself. My name is Nick Frontera. For those of you who don't know me, I am one of the founders and the project lead for Satoshiverse, which is a blockchain superhero universe that we've been building for the last 2 years. We started with a collaboration with Jose Delbo, who is one of the first established comic artists to enter the space back in 2020. And I think for the VV fam on here who are into comics might know him from his time with Marvel and DC and Wonder Woman and Transformers. But he actually released the first the first original comic book NFT back in July of 2020, a comic that he created called Death. And then shortly thereafter, we created a character called Satoshi the Creator together, and the Satoshiverse has evolved from that. We have a team building a third-person action RPG game called Satoshi's Legions that is set to release in alpha in January of next year, and a ton of other good stuff that I won't belabor too much right now. Check out the website, check out the socials. But what I really want to do is introduce our awesome panel, which today is just crazy, crazy cool. We've got Riz from Vivi, who's going to be telling us all about what Vivi's doing and the Vivi verse, which is I'm super excited about. We've got we've got Peanut Butter from the Decentraland team, which is holds a dear place in my heart. We've collaborated a bunch with Decentraland, and is the reason I got into crypto. So back in 2017, that's what got this party started for me. So super stoked to have Decentraland on as always. And then we've got Mark, who's just over pioneering the content creation side with Land Vault, who are one of the biggest content creators and gamification metaverse creators in the space. So super stoked to have them on. And I my introductions don't do any of you justice, so what I want to do now is open up so that you guys can introduce yourselves, tell us a little bit about the project for those who don't know, and then we'll jump into the questions. So why don't we start with you, Riz, and tell us about VV and the VV verse and yourself.
Yeah, perfect. Just making sure you can hear me there before I go
Loud
on.
and clear.
Yeah, perfect. All right, cool. So for anyone who doesn't know me, my name is Reese. I help run the communications at Ecomi and VV. And these days I'm probably more on the token side of the house. So just a bit of background. We really kicked things off mid to late 2017. And we began with Ecomi and building our own cold storage wallet. And that was really our entry into crypto and into this space. The way Dan, our co-founder, tells it, we really had a few choices to get in at that time, and it was either sort of an exchange or a project or a cold wallet. So we started there. And then as CryptoKitties really came to the fore, late 2017, all the light bulbs started going off for us. David, our CEO, has worked in licensing and collectibles for 25 plus years. And it became really apparent that there was an opportunity there to digitize what had always been a very physical space, the world of collecting. So we sort of dived right in and began scoping and designing VV to be a collectibles platform, not just to be another marketplace or anything like that. And now we're sort of 4 years into that journey. VV's been live for 2. I think we've sold close to 8 million NFTs. We've brought in some of the biggest brands and licenses in the world, being Disney, Marvel, Pixar, Star Wars, DC, you name it. It's kind of on the VV roster these days. And that's in amongst a lot of independent artists, a lot of artists from that traditional physical collecting space like our partners at DesignerCon. We also exhibited at Comic-Con alongside Marvel in the past 12 months in New York and San Diego as well. So collectively, we're really walking these huge brands into the space and trying to digitize decades worth of IP that they own. And then moving forward, we really take those collectibles, which I'm sure we'll get into in this conversation, but I guess there is a game to collecting in and of itself. But we really get to level that up with a lot more immersive experience, a lot more social interaction, and the open world building that will become the VVverse. So that's probably us in a nutshell.
Incredible. I'm so excited to have you. When I got into the space, I was, it's back in 2017 as well, and I was a huge comic fan growing up with Jose's stuff, and just everything that surrounded the comic world, and there really wasn't a ton of it in the NFT space. So seeing you guys come in and the things you've been able to do in such a short time with comic art specifically, and really bringing in those major IPs has been really incredible. So super stoked to learn more about what you guys are doing with VVverse and jump in. So Decentraland, Peanut Butter, we got you there. Do you want to tell those who don't know about Decentraland and introduce yourself?
Hey, yeah, how's it going? Hopefully everybody could hear me well. I go by Peanut Butter in the space. I'm a community manager for the Decentraland Foundation. I've been working with the Decentraland Foundation team for roughly a year and a few months now, I'd say. It's been an amazing experience. If you're not familiar with Decentraland is a decentralized metaverse governed and owned by its users. Users have the ability to own and monetize their experience by creating emotes and wearables, or taking it to the next level by owning land in the actual metaverse, and building interactive scenes, or gaming, which is what we're getting into talking about today, which is going to be really exciting. Decentraland also hosts really amazing events like art weeks, fashion weeks, and we just recently had the Decentraland Metaverse Music Festival, which all of these events help bring in really amazing artists and brands into the space. It's been really cool experiencing the ones that get onboarded and are interested in sticking around and building their Web3 brand, and using Decentraland as kind of a stepping stone, or an onboarding process. So that's been really cool to see. And then me being a bit biased as a community manager, I always really enjoy seeing communities come together, and using our DAO as a resource. We have a DAO, a decentralized autonomous organization, where people could put in proposals if they have cool ideas to build anything in the space. We could use gaming as an example. Play to earn games are really hot, so people could go into the Decentraland DAO and request for funding, and get a grant potentially to make money to build out whatever their game or their experience is in the space. So lots of opportunity in Decentraland.
Awesome. Yeah, I can't wait to get into some of this tooling that you guys have built out. I know, one of the reasons I learned about coding and modeling was just to mess around with my build in Decentraland. So, and it's kind of led to now leading a 30-something person studio. So my journey is definitely, I'm biased, but I think what you guys are doing is amazing, and really excited to hear your insight on these points. And last but definitely not least of our panelists, Mark, can you tell us a little bit about what you guys are doing at Landville, and introduce yourself as well?
Yeah, thank you so much, Nick. Really happy to be here. I feel like I sit in a really interesting spot, for this panel of this gamification of the metaverse. So, my name is Mark Manginelli. I'm the head of Web3 sales and partnerships at Landvault, and we are the largest metaverse design and production studio in the space. So we're working with, what we started, as a Web3 NFT and crypto native brand, really working with a lot of the biggest and best names, in our small niche ecosystem, and we've really grown. Now we have almost 200 employees worldwide, spanning across 25 countries, 130 or so of which are full-time in-house developers. So that ranges from game developers, voxel architects, game designers, and anything in between to help us bring the brands, companies, and a lot of this intellectual property, some of the world's most amazing intellectual property that everyone knows and loves, into the metaverse and what that might mean. So we're agnostic to platforms, although we absolutely love Decentraland and have built some of our most exciting experiences there. And then I also the other interesting dynamic is I'm a co-founder of Ready Player DAO. And our DAO is the largest North American-based gaming DAO. So we'll work with Web3, the blockchain and Web3 gaming's largest and most exciting up-and-coming games that are being built today. So we'll invest, we'll empower, and we'll advise these teams within the ecosystem to really help onboard Web2 users and the traditional gamers into the space, while also helping elevate everything that they're trying to accomplish. So I think the gamification of these experiences, in our mind, is just ultra important to really just bring a lot of this content and exposure to these Web3 decentralized platforms. So super excited to be here and share some of the learnings and some of our experiences that we've been fortunate enough to see over the last 2 years or so. So thanks for having me, Nick. Appreciate it.
Thank you for joining. I know how busy these days can get, but so stoked to have you as well. And last, I guess, but definitely not least, our host for today, from Apollo Entertainment, Spencer. Why don't you jump on, introduce yourself, and get us started?
Hey, what's going on, guys? So my name is Spencer Vogel. I've been working with Apollo Entertainment for about 1.5 years now, helping out with everything, strategy, marketing, drop development, and Satoshiverse, everything in between. I also got a plug because I got so many VV fam and so many red circles in the audience. I'm also co-host of the Comics and Crypto podcast, which has a lot of coverage of the VV community. So I'm super excited to have Reese here. So basically, I'm going to be hosting today, and the way that this space is going to work is we're going to start off asking a few questions to everyone in the group, kind of just panel style. Anybody feel free to jump in and answer however they want, and if we get a quiet moment, I'll call on some people, and then we'll move into some individual questions for you guys. So we'll start off with a question for everyone. And Nick, since you're so excited about the subject, maybe we'll have you start this one off. So what do you think the role is of gaming and gamification, and what do you think that role will be in the metaverse as it continues to be developed?
All right, yeah. This is a good one. I think that for me, my journey began with reading the book and then watching Ready Player One. Early kind of in my adventure, and I think that kind of for those who needed kind of a reference point of what the metaverse could look like, that was a good one, right? Like you saw this kind of interaction of all different things, totally different, all kind of coming together through some interwoven, kind of a web per se. But I think what was really interesting about it was that that each world, each experience kind of had its own gamified elements. And what I think that, the takeaway there, and not just, looking at the movie, but kind of generally as we're going forward, is that whether it's through art or gaming mechanics or opportunities to get stuff, NFTs or cryptocurrencies or real world stuff, I think that as people spend more and more time in the metaverse, there's going to have to be elements of those experiences that really grasp them. So it could just be, looking at art in a gallery. It could be, admiring beautiful worlds and really just the stuff that's visually put in front of you. But I think that as we progress further into the metaverse and the potential of the metaverse, what you're going to see is that people really want more. They want to experience gaming like never before, and they want to experience kind of virtual reality like never before. And I think, where virtual reality meets gaming, where the things we're seeing on our screen become immersive gaming experiences, I think that's going to be the metaverse of the future. So whether gaming is you are in, a company's commercial, and you're not just watching the commercial, but you're playing some game to earn a coupon or to earn a free whatever, if maybe you're running the 40-yard dash to earn a free bottle of Gatorade, and that's their metaverse experience, it's going to be so much more immersive than just seeing content, because there is that competitive aspect. There is that, want to do something active, right? Where you're using your brain, you're competing, you're doing something that's rewarding, and then the reward actually feels like a reward. And so I think it's going to definitely have a place. I think we'll dive pretty deep into this with the other questions, but yeah, that's kind of my take on how gaming's going to play into all this.
Reese, you wanna jump in next?
Yeah. I'll happily jump in for our side. So, I mean, I think it's probably important to maybe loosely define gamification, right? Especially in the context of Ready Player One and things like that, because I know that we all have this vision of really immersive, interactive experiences using virtual reality or augmented reality glasses, that kind of thing. But there's a lot of ways to actually gamify a metaverse that aren't, what we consider like a console game, that style of thing. So I sort of touched on collecting as a form of gamification, which we sort of already have in VV. But in the metaverse, I mean, you're going to be able to gamify everything, right? We already see it somewhat these days in Discord and things. You can get badges and points and ranks and that kind of thing. But you're going to be able to gamify those social interactions in the metaverse. You're going to be able to gamify things that you can actually do with your NFTs, right? If we consider NFTs to be observation and ownership, right now, most NFTs that you have, you can look at, but you can't do much with. So the metaverse and any form of gamification is really adding interaction to that ownership. And that's kind of the tack that we're taking moving forward, using your collectibles to begin with, at least, trying to gamify experiences around those, whether they're centered around a particular brand or a particular series within that brand, that kind of thing. And I think that we'll sort of attack that long before we head into those really immersive, like full world gaming style environments. But for us, and I think this would be similar for Decentraland and Land Vault, the way you guys deploy and all those things as well, it's really going to be about, it's a matter of capturing attention, right? And to bring people into your metaverse, it has to be fun. Right? I think that's what all of these experiences have to be focused around, because it's not just ownership of something isn't enough for people. And I don't think it will be once everything that we own in the physical world is digitized. So those experiences really have to be focused around having fun, being engaging enough to bring people in or encourage them to build in your metaverse. And I'd love to kind of get some other opinions from you guys on the panel about this, but then not just to build there, to have enough reason for people to return, right? Because otherwise there's not much point to building in the first place. So I think that's what we'll focus on moving forward. And I'm really curious to see how some of these metaverse builds have gone so far. I know you guys mentioned having concerts and music festivals and things like that in the metaverse, but have you found that they are captivating enough an experience that people come back just to enjoy the metaverse, or were they there for that one event and that was kind of it?
So definitely with some of those bigger events with the music festival and stuff like that, they definitely attract a particular kind of audience. Might not necessarily be the native Web3 user that's looking to get into the metaverse. They might just be looking to enjoy an experience from their favorite artist that they've seen, posting about it on their social medias, and then, stumble their way into the metaverse, and then, kind of might be interested in learning what it is from there. They might not be. So definitely, there's all kinds of community stories from the Decentraland community of, people who have came in from these big events, and then, learned about what the platform is, and then ended up being, some of our, most prominent creators and, people in, active in the DAO, probably that we have that come in from some of these bigger events. So that's definitely been really awesome. But definitely what you said about having, other experiences that are just fun in general outside of that help keep retention. It's definitely a huge step to creating the, the next layer of user retention, and, what the gamifying in the metaverse is potentially going to look like. Which it's really going to be interesting to see how that plays out in Decentraland, because a lot of the gamification that's happening in the Decentraland platform is being built out by the users. The general idea of the Decentraland Foundation isn't necessarily for the Decentraland platform to be a game itself, but a place that can host creators to build their own games. So it's really empowered by the community, the direction that gaming is going to be steered in Decentraland. So for me personally, it's really enjoying and interesting to watch.
Yeah, and kind of building off that, my experience in Decentraland, and Mark, I want to get your thoughts on this because I'm sure you guys have done some of these before. But when Decentraland first launched, the initial launch was this big scavenger hunt, and people ran around, and each either creator or project or whatnot built a little kind of a mini game. It was really just to navigate through, do a few things, and then you get a prize at the end. But I think the one that was most memorable to me, and benefited me a ton personally, was that back in the day when it was called Matic, now it's Polygon. They had an exhibition in Decentraland, and I had never, as part of the scavenger hunt, I had never known anything about Matic or Polygon. I mean, I was very interested in the space. I was trying to learn as much as I could. This was before Decentraland was partnered with them in any NFT capacity, but they had this exhibition, and you ran through, and the basic game was that in order to get to the end and get the reward, you had to go to these little kiosks and watch a video, and each video kind of explained a little bit about what Matic was, what they were trying to achieve. And this was kind of in my early days of trying to learn about crypto and think about what to invest in and yada yada yada. Well, turns out that was a really good way of learning about Matic, and kind of realizing in the moment what effect their platform was going to have on what they were building as a layer 2 blockchain, that idea, what that was going to mean. And I went out and bought some Matic, and that turned out really well for me after that. But I would have never known about that had it not been for this quote unquote game that was essentially a product overview for their company, but done in an interesting way, so that it felt like I was actually paying attention. There was a reason to pay attention. And Mark, I mean, kind of building off this topic, I'm sure you guys have done builds like that, or if you haven't, you will be. What do you think about that kind of enterprise side of builds in the metaverse, and how that would work?
Yeah, it's super interesting, right? And I think that the really cool thing for us is we get to see, like, we have a really interesting purview of how these brands are really thinking about their entrance and how they want to make their mark, as they come into the metaverse. So, we've done some really exciting ones, and I think the one that probably, it makes me kind of giggle every time that I think about it, and the most random one is a build that we did for Tyson Foods and Hillshire Farms. So if you're not familiar, I mean, they're a deli meat company. So when you think about bringing deli meats into the metaverse, it's not necessarily the first company that you'd think, would be that quote unquote tastemaker, be one of the first sets of IP or brands to enter this, new and, up and coming space. So we see gaming as like a absolutely crucial dynamic of every one of our builds. And through the creative process with our super talented creative team and our development team, along with a lot of the stakeholders and shareholders on the other side of the fence for these companies and brands, we really just try to think through what will not only bring somebody to this experience once, but what is going to keep them coming back. So I know Reese mentioned it before, but it's like they need to be fun, they need to be engaging. So there's only so much that you can talk about salamis and bologna. But if you can start to create some gamified dynamics around it, the Hillshire Farms experience, we gamify the whole thing. So when you enter the barn, there's a ton of branding, so you would recognize that it is a Hillshire Farms experience and Tyson Foods experience. But then from there, as you're entering this space and you're cooking, you're creating sandwiches, you're doing all these different things that then earn you points that can then earn you wearables. So that was their overall. Their design and what they ultimately wanted to achieve, to essentially just get their brand and name in front of consumers that might not have traditionally interacted with them before. or maybe they've seen it. Maybe their parents had ultimately been the ones to to buy these things for the household. So that's always a fun one to discuss and talk about. Another interesting one. I mean, so we did the MasterCard build for Pride Plaza, and that was exciting because that helped. Really, that was a short-term activation. So a lot of these brands they're not necessarily embracing fully this whole ethos of Web3, where they're coming in, they're making the full investment in buying the land and then ultimately building it out. So a lot of times they'll come to us and seek our guidance on how can they do it in a very seamless manner where they don't have to worry about private keys, they don't have to worry about wallets, or maybe even opening up a corporate wallet. So we walk them through. We'll meet them where they are, hold their hand through the entire process, and make sure that their brand, their IP, that their image and message is really just brought through and thought out very, very carefully to be genuine and authentic. So MasterCard was a really exciting one that we gamified. Not only the history of MasterCard, but how they're embracing their LGBTQ plus community. And then last but not least, I think another really interesting one to point out is Standard Chartered. So Standard Chartered is a 200-plus-year-old financial institution. And what they really wanted to do is they recognize that they're losing a lot of talent to Web3, right? So it's kind of this one-way street of a lot of their best employees are leaving the traditional financial sector, and I'm one of them. I come from traditional finance myself, but they wanted to now. How can they start to now attract those same types of users and people back to them and start to to engage and to ultimately hire some of the Web3 talent. So what they did is they with our help, we created this gamified experience around digital asset education where the users can learn about these assets, but then even unlock a job application. So their overarching theme was around recruitment. So they said, let's meet the users and let's meet the very people that we want to attract where they are. So we built them this amazing experience, where at the end of this gamified, maze and kind of, parkour style experience, they would basically unlock this job application and a 30-minute call with a recruiter. So it's, really it's how the brand ultimately wants to approach it. We're there to kind of guide them through, to tell them what works and what might not be so great. But we see gaming as just a crucial dynamic in every one of the experiences that we make, because we know that it'll help drive engagement, not just the first time, but multiple times throughout the experience.
Sorry, Mike, can I just ask the example of the farm that you gave there? Did they have a tie back to their physical product and physical company, or were they just testing the waters in the digital space to see where there was synergy there?
This one in particular, this is kind of the experimentation for them.
Okay.
There were some dynamics where we did create some wearables and some avatars for them that ideally that people will use, and their brand will will resonate throughout Decentraland, far beyond the once the experience is taken offline. And there were a couple opportunities where you could link out to their website, but
right.
there wasn't a true I guess like an opportunity to ultimately purchase some of their products.
Yeah.
Hershey's did where basically Hershey's you could basically it was basically a holiday shopping experience where basically you can earn wearables, you can share on social media. There was a little kiss where you can kind of take a selfie of you and your avatar in the experience, and then it linked you out to basically purchase directly within the experience. So it linked you out to to their e-commerce site. So Hershey's embraced that dynamic. Tyson and Hillshire Farms, they looked at it a little bit differently. I guess they weren't necessarily linking like directly buying and purchasing, some salami, from Decentraland. But yeah, no, it's a really great question, because I think it's a lot of different brands and IP are approaching it in different ways. But the ultimate goal is, we see these as businesses. We see all of these experiences not just as a marketing or a cost center, where I think most people they associate it with that. But we look at these as all revenue generation opportunities to now engage with an audience that might not be a consumer already, or maybe they are consumers already, but now just engage with them in a much more immersive and 3D way.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's really expanding the brand opportunity, right? I mean, like you said, I never would have expected a farming company to want to enter the metaverse there, but now you have this plethora of potential products that you can create digitally that just didn't make sense to have as part of your branding as a physical company. So I'm really curious to follow those journeys and see if these companies end up becoming something completely different, if they operate in the same fashion in the digital space, or expand horizons there.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, this is the most exciting thing for us because we get to see, you know, a lot of times right now it's like we're working with the existing, whether it's different VPs of marketing or the different heads of these different departments internally that are slowly starting to become now like Web3 teams, whether it's a chief metaverse officer or a chief Web3 or chief crypto, whatever that might be internally for a certain brand or company. They're starting to embrace it a lot more and realize that this dynamic is just a crucial piece of their natural progression. Because for us, this is the natural evolution of the internet, right? This is the next iteration of what we think, will become the next social media dynamics, right? But now
Yeah,
it's this user and creator owned economy.
exactly. And just to harken back to the point earlier about Matic running that scavenger hunt, right? And we see it with Arbitrum Odyssey, and I know Optimism has a similar sort of thing as an onboarding process, but it's an educative onboarding process, but you can now really align incentives correctly, right? If you're trying to educate people across Web 2 or bring them into your physical store, that kind of thing, I mean, the incentive is usually there's a sale on or some sort of discount or special deal or that kind of thing. Whereas in the digital world, you don't need to really put discounts in front of people to incentivize. Now you can reward instead of, so you reward with badges or with NFTs or that kind of thing. So just to throw back to that point, I really do think that we're going to start seeing targeted education and onboarding change and become a prominent part of the metaverse, which kind of falls under this gamification umbrella as well. Just my 2 cents anyway.
Yeah, no, we wholeheartedly agree. Yeah, and we're just excited to just watch this play out, right? Like all these platforms and us included, we're all building it while we fly it.
Exactly
So
right.
as the space matures, as the platforms evolve and continue to grow and expand, all of these dynamics, right? The utility of whether it's in-game perks, special VIP access for wearable or POAP holders, in real life access to events, to maybe drive traffic to a physical brick and mortar location, special offers, like all these things that that you couldn't necessarily do before, are slowly just, I think you're starting to see a lot of these brands, like the lights starting to go off. There is this, I think about like being a crypto native myself and being involved in, learning about Bitcoin a little over a decade ago. Like I've been evangelizing and trying to just spread this, this word of onboarding just friends, family, and colleagues to, to crypto in general. But I think thankfully there's a little bit of a shielding or maybe a separation between like this overall crypto, maybe association and metaverse. So I think we're a little bit shielded or protected from, even, as today, as, things are happening on Capitol Hill around FTX. I think there's still such an amazing amount of excitement around, metaverse or at least virtual experiences for these brands, regardless of what's happening in the broader crypto market.
For sure. I mean, at the end of the day, crypto, NFTs, they're just technologies. Right? They're just technologies. Even though we all get caught up in the price action and the bear market, the bull market, and all that bullshit, like it's, everyone has this opportunity to use the technology in the way they think is the most appropriate. And eventually, I think, it's just making something more democratized and more accessible. It will win out in the end either way.
To move the discussion along, speaking of technology, I'd love to talk a little bit about hardware technology and specifically how the advancements in hardware like AR and VR will affect the way we interact with gaming and the metaverse in general going forward. I don't know who anybody wants to jump in for this one. Maybe Decentraland can start with this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think technological advancements will be definitely a huge pillar in taking the metaverse space into the next direction. A lot of I personally see people experiencing anyways whenever onboarding into the space is their computer not being able to keep up, or different things like this from not coming from necessarily a computer gaming background. Educating people is a good step to begin with, as far as just getting people familiar with what their computer needs to keep up. For one, if they're looking to run on the computer, like what is a video card, and how much processing speed or internet speed do I need? These different things that people aren't necessarily familiar with, and their day-to-day internet browsing life. And then going a bit beyond that, taking things to the AR and VR level, I think that what people are really looking for in the metaverse is an extension from what they're experiencing in the real life. So taking some of these experiences that we've had in the past, going from the music festival or to the fashion week, or whatever other examples anybody could think of, being able to tie those into something that people are able to experience in the real world will be a lot more enjoyable, I think. Whenever I think AR particularly is exciting for me. Where you kind of you say you're looking at your computer screen and you have a fancy set of AR glasses on, and as soon as something's triggered on your screen, and the whole adaptive immersive experience is coming out of your computer screen from what's triggered by what you're looking at from these glasses that you have on. It's totally a possibility. Kind of are seeing some of the early stages of it with Snapchat, especially with what Artifact's doing with some of their IRL merch, like the jacket they just did that has the code on the front of it, and if you're holding your camera towards it with Snapchat, you have these big wings that grow out of your back. So just a really early step of what could potentially be done to adapt from some of these metaverse experiences into what AR could potentially be. And then VR is also extremely exciting. There's a team that I believe is working on a VR app in Decentraland. I think you could kind of run around in VR at the moment, which is really cool. And just taking some of the gaming experiences and adapting them into the next layer of higher level user experiences from VRs is going to be really exciting as well. So I'm just looking forward to seeing how all of that plays out, and what the future of it looks like for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm particularly stoked about this. I was probably in 27 or 2015. I was going to early VR conferences, and I remember I went to one in LA, and at that point, really the only thing that they did was make you nauseous and want to throw up, but it was still exciting because you could kind of see the potential, and even if you were riding a little roller coaster that only went straight and just was bumping you up and down, you felt the degree of immersion that was possible with VR. So, as content creators, I think the new technology is going to really open doors. When I think about art and the metaverse and the world and how immersive some of these experiences can be, I'm imagining the best creative minds in the world designing a whole new world with a blank canvas that you can experience in that first person mode. So I think, from a VR perspective and immersion, we've just got the possibilities are endless. And it's what personally makes me very excited, to wake up every morning and lead a studio of awesome creators as we're building that world. On the flip side, I think, Vivi has done a really great job with this on the AR side, taking what we're building already in the metaverse, whether it's NFTs, digital collectibles, infrastructure, and actually creating this blend of real world and metaverse type experiences. And I think, as we start to progress beyond the phone, right, beyond the iPad being the medium through which we experience in AR, and it goes to something more like Google Glass, or some sort of glasses, or a contact lens, or some sort of laser projection. I feel like I see a new product for AR every day. But once we get there, I think what we're going to see is just this incredible, amount of information available to us through that tech, whether it's through, enterprise use cases, whether retail stores are alerting customers of coupons. I think you'll have the option to enable just a world of information that isn't previously possible. And so as a content creator that's creating content in 3D, and I'm sure, Mark and the Land Vault guys are thinking about this too, the real world applications of 3D digital content, the ability to enhance experiences that are already cool in real life, whether that's sporting events or stores or food or whatever it might be, it to me is super exciting. And I think we're actually going to see an explosion in AR because of all the, potential business use cases for it, before we see an explosion in VR. But I think that's coming, and it's coming sooner than we think.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you, Nick. I think AR definitely has a little bit more legs, and we'll probably see advancements there before we see VR. I think for me, the most exciting thing for us, I'd love to start seeing just the seamless and most, or I guess most efficient way to just onboard people, right, is, in my opinion, in our opinion, is through mobile. So watching a lot of these platforms just start to integrate, even just allowing the mobile use, of these platforms. So starting as simple as mobile, and then ultimately just, slowly just getting into whether it's AR, VR, to be able to go into one of our experiences that we build. And, ultimately then, I don't know if maybe Apple comes out with the next set of VR glasses that maybe that's the catalyst that helps that take off. I don't necessarily know that answer, but I think we're definitely excited around the hardware applications that, that can only just enhance the user experience for the builds that we're creating for these brands or for these artists. If we're working with, we're just seeing an influx of musicians, and music-based IP that are interested in creating these experiences, whether it's releasing their albums and their their music in these platforms in it as an NFT, or doing some sort of just immersive virtual concert in these spaces. I think having whether it's AR or VR, having these hardware applications are only going to make the work that we do stand out and that much more engaging. So yeah, so we're totally excited, and we're just thinking through, what do we have to do to prepare, so as these things start to take shape, what do we have to do as the creators and as the development studio, just to make sure that we're equipped and we're ready for all these things that are coming in the future.
Yeah, I think you really raise a good point there, right? We all look ahead to the future of VR and AR, but there's a lot of optimizations that can be made today in terms of the way that people access these services, right? Obviously, mobile being one, and that was for us a huge factor of our early success, right? The fact that you could carry around your collection in your pocket, access it at any time, and it was very simple to use. And then we layer on the AR and create that interactivity and really for us focusing on collectibles, trying to create some tangibility around a digital product, right? Because we're trying to take an industry that has always been very tangible and create the same meaning and the same value attachment in that digital space. So yeah, I think that optimizing for mobile is a huge thing. One example for us, Metaverse related specifically, is that the technology we're using for the VVverse, everything is rendered in super high spec on high-tech gaming computers and all of those things, and then live streamed to you through the cloud. So it actually gives anybody with any device, it doesn't have to be these really high-end gaming computers to render a really beautiful metaverse environment now. You can, that can be rendered externally and then beamed to you in fractions of a second. So you're still moving in real time. And I think that little optimizations like that do open access to these platforms, be it through a PC or a mobile, are going to be a massive stepping stone in that process. Because at the moment, I mean, a VR headset, they're amazing, and you can do some really cool things with them, but $500, $600, $700 price tag is still quite a large barrier to entry there. And I imagine it will be the same with AR glasses when they first come out. So yeah, I think in the interim, optimizing the services that we all already use is going to be crucial. And then the real adoption of those technologies comes when it becomes cheaper, frankly. Cheaper and more accessible to people. But obviously AR is a huge part of our current product offering and will continue to be. And I think that AR will ultimately have more adoption than VR, right? I kind of view VR as gaming, which, you know, the gaming industry is growing, but it also has its own sort of niche community, whereas AR has the potential for gaming, but then will also open up a whole, you know, avenue of other utilities, whether it's like road navigation or any of those kind of things. So I just think as a technology, AR will be adopted more fully across the world. And it's not until we really remove this phone tether, as you mentioned earlier, that those technologies start to really supersede what we use at the moment.
Awesome.
Yeah, I definitely want to agree with that. Like your virtual VR, you're taking, you know, yourself into a virtual world. AR, you're taking aspects of virtual and applying it to what you're experiencing in reality. So it creates more of an extension. So a lot of what you could take some of your metaverse experiences or some of what you're enjoying from the metaverse and experience it a lot, you know, easier in the real world with AR. So that's going to be, yeah, definitely exciting to see how that pans out.
Yeah, especially if we're taking the example of directing traffic to a particular store, right? Like, say for us, if we wanted to send people to a particular collectible store, or, you know, Marvel wanted to send people to an exhibit that they had on, something like that. Like, that's all AR, right? It's not VR. VR, you'd be in your lounge room and maybe doing it digitally, but AR would push you there. Or you would see a giant Captain America floating above the store, right? And you walk underneath it and it airdrops you collectibles because you're using the VV app in your AR glasses, or however that will work, right? So, yeah, I just think AR as a technology stands to impact more lives and affect more lives, right? And if we really are looking ahead to this Ready Player One type immersive world, well, that's immersive with our real world, right? The physical world, not just a digital representation of that, right? And in those digital worlds, or in that digital overlay of the real world, I mean, I think we're going to end up at a point where we get bombarded with digital billboards and advertisements and digital characters walking down the street, and you can choose to interact with them or not. And all of that will take place with augmented reality. So.
Totally agree. I think that augmented reality, personally, is going to be way more significant, at least in the short term, than virtual reality. I mean, I personally can get way more excited about interacting with digital items in my physical space than actually fully immersing myself in the digital space. But that's just me. So we're actually going to pause the discussion here for a second now to announce our giveaway winner. So every week on our spaces, we give away an NFT from one of our collections for the Satoshiverse. This week, we're going to be giving away one of our 8Mo Army avatars, which will be usable in our game in the future, coming out pretty soon. So the winner today is going to be NFT Opportunist, or NFT Energy. So congratulations to the winner. Send us a DM, and we'll make sure to get you your prize.
Congratulations.
Now, moving on to the next question. This one is going to be directly to you, Reese. So VV's Metaverse, the VVverse, isn't live yet, but we got to see a really, really amazing preview of it at DesignerCon in November. So can you explain some of the features that have been announced so far? You know, and if there's anything specific that you can share on it, what you guys are planning on to do to bring gamification to the experience?
Yeah, was there any particular features you wanted me to touch on, or just sort of branch?
Why don't you just run through it? Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people here would just be interested to hear kind of what you guys have planned.
Yeah, sure. So as you mentioned, our Metaverse is not live yet. It's slated to begin rolling out sort of Q1 next year. And there is a demo video live on VV Twitter if anyone wants to go back and take a look at that. So we have touched on a couple of things, right? Some of the technology behind it, offering that cloud service streaming so that the quality is on par across all devices, or as close as it can be. We also have things inside our home space, and obviously I can't go into too much detail because we haven't revealed all of it yet, but dynamic sound and dynamic things. So, and there's, I can't remember what the term is, it's a particle system as well. So you can have say a fireplace, and it looks like a fire is burning, and as you approach that fireplace, the sound of it gets louder in your headphones and begins crackling, and then as you leave it, the sound disappears, right? So the digital space, if it's going to replicate the physical, has to replicate all of those features, right? Not just the visual, as in what we're looking at, but also how the rest of our senses work together to interact in our physical world. That's really what we're trying to translate across to make that more immersive. when it comes to sort of forward planning and gamification, I mean, the initial phases of our metaverse are really your home space, right? It's an extension of your kind of current VV showrooms, which gives you a lot of customization and all of that, much in the same way that we customize our own homes, right, in the real world. But we do have an open scripting language, which I think is going to be very crucial, right? We've probably all seen Minecraft and Roblox and the effects that opening that access to developers can have on an ecosystem. And our value driver really remains the same as it did for VV. We're bringing some of the biggest brands and artists and license partners further into the Web3 space and into the VVverse and into the Metaverse space, which presumably will continue to bring in fans of those brands as new experiences are offered. Now, some of those will be built by us, some will be built by developers, some will be built by license and brand partners. And what that really gives you is I guess the collectibles become the key to those experiences. Not for all of them, but for a lot of them. So you might need a particular set of Batman black and white to go into this particular gaming experience, and then you complete that experience, and you can you take home a POAP or a key or something else that takes you to the next experience. So for us, it's really layering on a new experience with your collectible items, and it's not like you can really do that with physical collectibles, right? You don't turn up to an event with your Batman statues and ask for entry, right? But in the digital world, you can do that just with a quick wallet reference. So really, I think that's kind of where our experience there is headed. I think the social interaction side of things, as everyone sort of is working towards with Metaverse, is a really big component, right? In the same way that collectibles become a bit of a social flex, so does your experience, so does your gaming history and all those kind of things. So opening ways for people to interact with each other that is outside of actually just playing a game together, whether that's live streaming or having those conversations in virtual reality, all of that kind of stuff, I think will be really crucial to supplement the experience. But I don't think that is enough of a driver to bring people in on its own, right? We can already talk to each other on WhatsApp or Messenger or anything else. So yeah, I really think social interaction and experience has to supplement the larger metaverse gaming collectibles experience that we offer. But I think it will be crucial to keeping that cohesion and giving people enough reason to kind of come back and share space with each other in the digital realm. But they're just a couple of the technologies we're using, I guess, on top of NFTs and AR and all of that. And then at some point, yeah, I think we do really envision a bit more of a digital overlay of our physical world. I would love to look at my home, my physical home, but in AR glasses, it looks like a castle one day, or I can swap it and it looks like something else the next day, So I think eventually that's the bridge we'd like to create. But there's quite a ways before we get there.
Awesome. Thank you, Reese. Yeah, I definitely appreciate that you brought up the social aspect of it, because that's one of the things that I'm personally most excited about is being able to show off your collectibles to your friends is one thing, but actually being able to like go into the same space as them in a digital environment when you live across the world is another. And very, very excited to be able to have that experience.
Exactly, and even for us specifically with collectible items and NFTs, I mean, just being able to go into somebody else's digital showroom, see that they have a collection that of characters that you really love, and then you've just made a new friend potentially, right? Or you connect with someone over your fandom, and you've created that entirely in a digital space. I think there's a lot of potential there.
Totally agree. So next question is to Peanut Butter at Decentraland. So what is Decentraland doing to enable its users to create gamified experiences on their land?
Yeah, good question. Good question. I guess first you got to look at the Decentraland platform itself, and see, users and creators have the ability to own or participate in owning land by either collaborating with a landowner, or Decentraland just rolled out a rental feature pretty recently where creators are able to go in and rent land directly from the Decentraland marketplace. So creating a platform where users and creators, developers are able to come to a common location with others and have a place to deploy would be the first step. After that, moving into SDK, the software development tools that Decentraland is providing for creators and developers to have like the resources they need to develop in the metaverse is a huge step for sure. There are plenty of creators that are making really awesome play to earn games or experiences in the space that have come in and be like, hey, I've never coded or 3D modeled or done anything like this before, and have entered into Decentraland, gained an interest, and with the tools provided through the Decentraland SDK and the documents and the resources that are available, I've learned how to do all of these different steps, how to code, how to model, how to find a team to do all of these different steps to build out whatever experiences they're envisioning. And then once they get to that step and understand what they they own their land, or they have participation in land, they have the tools, they have the knowledge to be able to create. After that, they can move into using the Decentraland DAO, which I talked about briefly earlier, to fund whatever they're looking to do. If it's a good enough idea and they get enough support from voters in the Decentraland DAO community, they could get funded to build out whatever their experience is. So you could go from being not even a holder of land in Decentraland to renting land to learning everything you need to know to getting a grant. I've seen people do it all in the matter of months, and build out some of the coolest experiences in the space with just the resources available through Decentraland.
Awesome. Thank you. So we're at the top of the hour here. Mark, I just want to make sure you have enough time for this last question here I have for you. So we'll get into it real quick. So Land Vault has completed over 200 Metaverse builds since its inception in 2017. What role has gamification played in the builds that Land Vault has created?
Yeah, really great question. I think, like I mentioned earlier, gamification and just and adding this dynamic of gaming is essential for every one of the builds that we do. Unless, there might be a specific brand or build that might just be a little bit, more on the educational side of things, and maybe they specifically request it. But we basically put out a game design doc. We have our team of just lifelong gamers, and now turned game developers and designers that ideate and think through, what can we do? How do we take this brand? How do we take this IP and add these gamification elements to make it exciting, right? To make it enticing. And we even go through, we'll go through iterations where, maybe we'll do it on a weekly, monthly, or quarterly cadence where we do a refresh. So we'll take the scene and we'll just kind of update it, upgrade the dynamic, whether it's maybe instituting and kind of, bringing in new functionality and new games into the scene, keeping the overarching theme of the build, but, adding new, interesting and unique, gamification components to just entice people to come back. So we're under NDA for a couple of the really big and exciting builds that we'll be launching in 2023. But there's a couple really exciting ones that I think everybody would appreciate. I wish I could tease it now. I guess I kind of just tease this whole dynamic, but I think overall the gaming dynamic. We're a gaming company at heart. We basically built the company from 2017, delivering advertisements in mobile games. So we're truly gaming nascent, if you will, and it's kind of at the core of everything that we do. So in a nutshell, it's become the core and the overarching theme of all. Anytime that we're interacting, engaging with brands, we're always thinking about, how do we make this fun, engaging, and enticing enough for people to want to keep coming back. Add the competitive dynamic. We'll even incorporate leaderboards. Where if there's some sort of fighting dynamic, if there's a racing dynamic, we're everyone can basically challenge their friends and race against their friends, and then maybe even incorporate some giveaways. We have a big one coming up next year where there'll be a leaderboard component, and then the top 100 get thrown into a raffle to basically get a VIP access to an in real life event around the launch of what this experience will be. So we'll get to share a little bit more of that, like at the top of Q1 next year. But in a nutshell, gaming is at the core and is the center of everything that we're doing in a lot of our builds.
Super cool, super cool. You know, I want to wrap up because we're at the top of the hour, and I want to be mindful of everyone's time. But I feel like we could talk about these topics for hours and hours and hours on end, and I get to do this every week. So I'm just so grateful that all of you were able to join. You know, Land Vault, Decentraland, VV. You know, you guys are all pioneers in this space, and I'm so glad that we were able to get everybody together and talk about these topics. Thank you everyone who joined and listened in and really you know, is part of this adventure that we're on. I think it's still so early, and we get to be within the privileged position that we're going to be the ones really determining what happens here, right? The metaverse, the digital world is kind of ours to build, and so I'm excited to kind of be part of that movement as we all are. um, we do this every week, so if you guys enjoyed this, we'll be coming up with another cool topic for next week and bringing on some awesome guests. But for now, I really just want to thank Mark, Peanut Butter, and Reese for joining us, and all of you in the crowd for joining as well. And yeah, so until next time, I guess if anyone wants to close off, I open the floor to you guys. But please do check out all the projects that were here, Satoshiverse. Of course, you know, follow us on Twitter, follow it, check out our website, satoshiverse.io, to learn more. But Land Vault, Decentraland, VV, please do check them out if you haven't already. And yeah, the floor is to you guys. Thanks again.
Nick, thank you so much. I'll just end it with, you know, we really appreciate the time and you allowing us to come up here and share some of our you know, the experiences and the work that we've done. If there's anyone that has thoughts, questions, if you know you have maybe your own set of IP, or maybe you're working with brands, we'd love to always chat and see how we can be valuable or useful, you know, in bringing and ushering in these brands in an authentic and genuine manner. So again, you know, thank you, Nick and Satoshiverse, for, you know, for the time today.
Yeah, I'll just second that, guys. Thanks for the invite. Really appreciate it. And massive thank you to everyone in the audience. If you haven't yet, go and check out all of these other projects, because we're all building this, man. Everyone's contributing. So massive thank you for having us here today.
Yeah, what they said. I'm just kidding. Yeah, thank you so much for everybody coming out. Thanks for all the speakers. It's a pleasure building this space with all you guys. Looking forward to get to know you guys more personally. Like I said, I'm Peanut Butter, community manager for Decentraland Foundation. If there's anybody that needs to talk to me about anything Decentraland related, feel free to reach out. Try to help out however possible. Thanks again for everybody here in the space.
All right. Until next time, guys. Great having you, and see you soon.
Thanks, everyone. See ya.